The first felony sentence gets handed down from a judge in the Capitol Selfie Fest case, so we'll talk a bit about what's going on that. Marjorie Taylor Greene is suspended from Twitter for vaccine hesitancy violations, so we'll go over a bit of what's going on there. A Minnesota state lawmaker is facing calls to resign after they went to go back and check his residency requirements and found out that he likes to beat up his wife, apparently. So we'll go over a bit of what's going on with that. And Ben Shapiro and NPR get into it, and I'm not going to read from either of their... Well, I'm going to read from NPR, but we will see what's going on with that fight. It's going to be all this and more over on Contemporary. Hey, do you trust the plan yet? I'm Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. Well, good morning, everybody who's stopped by, everybody who's going back and checking this back on the replay here. My name is Jay Edgar. Welcome to Contemporary, and we've got some stuff to go over here. It's not going to be as much of a marathon as some of our shows are, but there's still some stuff to go on, and it does seem a little bit like a shotgun blast. It's just a little bit all over everywhere here, but we'll go through it all. We'll break it down. We'll see what's going on with all that, then we will cover it all. But before that, head on over there. Check out my friends, The Generational Gap, of which John came over and helped me out last night because Elaine is still on a hiatus due to some home and family issues that are going on right now. So we won't be seeing her right off the bat for another couple weeks, but that's still going to be a good time. Coming up here, otherwise, you can also go check out The Daily Ignoramus, The Breakdown with Birkenhoff, The R-Rated Conservative, and The Freckles and Brit Show. Head on over there. Check out all of those shows. They're great shows, and all of them will be coming back on a new project that we're working on here. So watch for that. Watch the Twitter. Watch the Discord. Watch the Gilded for that, because we don't know how much longer the Twitter's or the Discord's going to be here after that discovery we made yesterday. So go ahead and watch all that, and you will get announcements soon. Otherwise, go over there and help us support those great creators. All right, looking in at your finance for the morning, the Dow was down 2% yesterday, down 725.81 points. Now, once again, we're still in correction territory, but it's getting a little bit wavery and wary as we go along here. So it's definitely something to watch here. That's quite the drop here. They say, I think that's the worst drop since May. I think it's been longer than that, though. I really do. But we will see what goes on with that. Looking in at your Bitcoin is also down today. It's down to $30,253.4 US dollars per Bitcoin. So it's still on sale. Go and grab a little bit. And if we have another day like we had yesterday, we will see this down below 30,000 once again. So go ahead and check that out. I know the government wants to make their own cryptocurrency, so you don't need Bitcoin anymore. But, I mean, that's not the reason we have Bitcoin either. So definitely something to watch as we go on with that. Looking at your gas, it looks like gas might be going down a little bit. It's still $2.79 in most places in Madison, but we're not seeing any of the $2.89s or $2.99s in this mixed in at all. It's just a straight $2.79 down the board, which with OPEC coming out and saying, yeah, we're going to turn on the pump and go, and we're going to supply over. Like I said, that could probably be the best thing for the Biden admin right now, to come back and have an oversupply come in and bring the fuel costs down, because that's going to help him on the economy. And it's going to help the American people, too. So I'm not going to call out and say, don't do this because we want to hurt the president. I don't care about hurting the president right now. I want relief for the American people. They want to go back to work. They want to go out and buy stuff. And they don't want to see inflation like we've been seeing. And getting the fuel costs back down is going to be a key step to that. So let's continue to watch this and see where it goes. Looking in at IBD for the morning here, Dow Jones Futures rally 200 points as IBM jumps on earnings beat. Netflix earnings on tap. This is from Scott Latonin. Dow Jones Futures, along with S&P 500 Futures and NASDAQ 100 Futures, were higher Tuesday morning following Monday's stock market sell-off on rising COVID-19 fears. Tech giant Netflix is set to report earnings late on Tuesday. On Monday, the Dow Jones plunged 2.1%, or 725 points. The S&P 500 sold off 1.6%, while the Nasdaq dropped 1.1%. Among the Dow Jones leaders, Apple tumbled 2.7% on Monday, while Microsoft moved down 1.3%. In today's market, Coca-Cola and McDonald's are near a buy point. IBM beat earnings estimates after the close. Tesla reversed from sharp losses again as it tests key support levels. Netflix snapped a 2-day losing streak ahead of Tuesday's earning results. Among the top stocks to buy and watch, AMD and Biotech and AutoNation are in or near buy zones. Microsoft and Tesla are IBD leaderboard stocks. BioNTech is an IBD swing trader stock. AMD was featured in this week's Stocks Near a Buy Zone column, while AutoNation was Monday's IBD stock of the day. On the futures, COVID-19 fears ahead of the stock market open on Tuesday. Dow Jones rallied 0.7%, or 230 points, so it's coming back up right now, while the S&P 500 futures moved up 0.6% versus fair value. NASDAQ 100 futures rallied 0.4% versus fair value. And remember, trading in Dow futures and elsewhere doesn't necessarily translate into actual trading in the next regular stock market session. The recent resurgence in COVID-19 cases in many parts of the world, including highly vaccinated countries like the UK, could hamper economic growth. In the US, coronavirus cases jumped 37% over the last 7 days to 203,082, according to Worldometer. Meanwhile, OPEC's Sunday agreement to end production limits also weighed on the major stock indices. U.S. crude oil futures plunged nearly 8%, the lowest level since May. Dow Jones oil stocks, Exxon and Chevron, lost 3.4% and 2.7% respectively. Among exchange-traded funds, Innovator IBD 50, Inch Tire, on Monday, NASDAQ 100 tracker Invesco QQQ Trust declined 0.8%. Meanwhile, SPDR S&P 500 descended 1.5%. So, with all that being said, with the chart that we looked at, it looks like it went down because people are very much afraid of the fact that this could be coming back and we could face more shutdowns. I don't know how many more shutdowns we're going to face because I don't know if some of these countries are willing to go back and do that again. I think that some of these countries are looking at this and saying, we might have a riot on our hands if we shut back down again. But there is that, plus there is the fact that, we had the bounce back here, so people are looking at these stocks and they're trying to get them in the basement as well. So I'm not sure where this goes at this point. It looks like it's possibly going to come back up throughout the day, but we will see where it goes. On Market Watch, Dow futures bounced 200 points higher after the biggest fall in 8 months. From William Watts. U.S. stock index futures rose Tuesday, signaling an attempted bounce for equities after rising worries over the spread of the Delta variant that causes COVID-19 triggered a sell-off that left major benchmarks at nearly 1-month lows on Monday. Stocks sank on Monday in a large move largely attributed to fears the spread of the Delta variant in Asia in particular would slow down the global economic recovery and possibly lead to renewed restrictions on travel and activity as inflation continues to rise. The word stagflation, which is a theme in the late 70s, is being bantered about again. A stagnant economy and inflation, an untraceable combination of problems, said Marshall Gittler, head of an investment and research at BD Swiss Holding Ltd. in a note. Worries about economic growth outlook could limit potential for equities to bounce in the near term, while making life more difficult for economic policymakers with inflation rising in the U.S., analysts said. The Federal Reserve has signaled it's prepared to begin discussing when it would be appropriate to begin tapering its monthly bond purchases, which would eventually be followed by interest rate increases. On the one hand, it will be difficult to keep planning hikes in case the economy is hurt again, while on the other one, you cannot ignore inflation if it continues to skyrocket well above your objective, said Charalambos Pizarros, head of research at JFD Group, in a note. For now, a cocktail of virus concerns and expectations of rate hikes in early 2023 may keep investors' morale dented. Excuse me. Apple has pushed back plans for employees to begin a return to the office for workers from early September to October, Bloomberg reported. Stock market investors are expected to continue to keep an eye on the Treasury market, where a rally in long-dated maturities has sent yields sharply lower, amplifying worries that the economic outlook, the yield on the 10-year note, was down 1.9 basis points at 1.168 after falling Monday to its lowest since mid-February. So, a lot of stuff going on with that. They're going to look at the meme stocks a little bit too, but yeah, this is going to be something we're going to see. We're going to watch where this goes, and if they shut it back down again, it's going to be hard on a lot of people. I hate to tell you that, but that's what we're going to see. If they hadn't inflated the currency to the level that they've inflated it before we go back into another potential lockdown, we might have come out of this fine, but another lockdown really could take a toll on a lot of people. We'll see where it goes. All right, let's get into the big news of the day. Starting with Politico, judge hands down first felony sentence tied to Capitol riot. From Josh Gerstein, a federal judge has handed down the first felony sentence in the January 6th storming of the U.S. Capitol, in order to take selfies, of course, sending a Tampa man to prison for 8 months for obstructing Congress's efforts to tabulate and certify the electoral vote. The sentence Paul Hodgkins, 38, received Monday for marching onto the Senate floor with a Trump flag during the chaotic Capitol takeover was less than half what prosecutors recommended, but U.S. District Judge Randolph Moss also turned down the defense's request that Hodgkins get no prison time. As he imposed the sentence, Moss said Hodgkins sent a profound and dangerous message by raising the Trump flag by the Senate dais at the hour members of Congress were supposed to be confirming President Biden's victory. The symbolism of that act is unmistakable, the judge said. In that act, he captured the threat to democracy that we all witnessed that day. People have to know that assaulting the United States Capitol and impeding the democratic process, even if you don't come bearing arms, will have consequences. Yeah. That sounds like a country that's really afraid of its own people, which is what this country should be. I mean, that's what they said in V for Vendetta, in spite of the fact that I've never seen that movie. The people shouldn't be afraid of their government. It should be the other way around. Coming a little more than 6 months after a crowd loyal to former President Trump battled with police and overran the Capitol building in a bid to head off the confirmation of Biden's win, the sentencing represents a milestone for the sprawling criminal investigation that has already led to charges against more than 535 people. At the sentencing hearing Monday in a federal courtroom just a few blocks from the Capitol, the prosecution bluntly labeled the attack on Congress as terrorism. Really. Terrorism. Because I called it a mostly peaceful protest. Well, the defense attorney for Hodgkins vehemently argued it was not. January 6th was an act of domestic terrorism, Assistant Attorney Moda Sedke said. He was part and parcel of an act of domestic terrorism that was going on around him. Hodgkins' lawyer, Patrick Ledoux, grew emotional as he insisted that it was a mistake to brand as terrorism a protest by Americans that got out of hand. Paul Hodgkins is not my enemy, said Ledoux, who serves a colonel in the Army Reserve. All of this commentary about January 6th being an act of domestic terrorism, I find it to be offensive. I think it's gaslighting the country, and it needs to stop. It was a protest that became a riot. Ledoux said if the Capitol riot amounted to domestic terrorism, civil unrest in recent months in Minneapolis and Portland should also be categorized the same way. If we're going to label this protest as domestic terrorism, then please consider this. Where do we draw that line, the defense lawyer said, expressing concern about the potential impact of the First Amendment rights. They breached the Capitol! It's the Capitol! They breached it! Oh my God! They breached the Capitol. It's the holiest place in our country. It's the head of our democracy. It's our Mecca. We get out of Congress every day. We walk outside of the mall and we pray to Mecca every day, as everybody else should. But Moss jumped in to reject the suggestion that the events of January 6th were simply a political protest that got rowdy. I don't think that any plausible argument can be made defending what happened in the Capitol as an exercise of First Amendment rights, the judge declared. There were people storming through the halls of the Capitol saying, "Where's Nancy?" People were threatening the lives of members of Congress. That is more than a simple riot. However, Moss repeatedly expressed skepticism about the prosecution's claims that Hodgkins should face some degree of punishment for the violence and property damage that took place on January 6th, even though he did not personally injure anyone or damage any property. No, but they have to make an example out of him. Ooh, Ben. Ben! Oof. All right. That's not Mr. Hodgkins' case, and I need to make sure that I'm sentencing Mr. Hodgkins based on the facts of this case and not the facts of anyone else's case, said Moss, an appointee of President Barack Obama. After Sedgwick repeatedly argued that a serious sentence for Hodgkins was needed to deter politically inspired repeat of January 6th, there it is, right there. The judge said the government would be able to send that message through many other defendants facing serious charges of violence. There it is. They don't care about justice off of this. This person breached the Capitol. He was a Trump person, and he got into the Capitol. The holy place where democracy goes, and he needs to be made an example of. This is not the First Amendment. This is not the government that our founders envisioned. They envisioned the fact that people could come down and express their grievances to the government, at the government. Not get thrown in prison for 8 fucking years, while the government itself demands that they get thrown in prison for even longer. This is making an example out of a person. They want to make sure that you are deathly afraid to ever express your grievances to the government again. That's what they're trying to do with this, but yes, this is the first. And yeah, I mean, Ron's got it too. They're also hoping to scare some of the other defendants into making plea deals so they don't go to trial. Just please don't take me to trial. I might go to prison for the rest of my life. Yeah, there is going to be an aspect of that too. All right, but that's what we see coming off of that. Let's grab one from the Dissociated Press. Garland bars prosecutors from seizing reporters' records. From Eric Tucker and Michael Balsamo. AG Merrick Garland on Monday formally prohibited federal prosecutors from seizing the records of journalists in leak investigations with limited exceptions, reversing years of department policy. The new policy largely codifies the commitment Garland has made in June when he said the Justice Department would abandon the practice of seizing reporters' records as part of efforts to uncover confidential sources. It aims to resolve a politically thorny issue that has long vexed Justice Department prosecutors, trying to weigh the media's First Amendment rights against the government's desire to protect classified information, of which there is way too much. The U.S. has, of course, an important national interest in protecting national security information against unauthorized disclosure, Garland wrote in his memo. But a balancing test may fail to properly weight the importance of national interest in protecting journalists from compelled disclosure of information revealing their sources they need to apprise the American people of the workings of their government. The memo makes clear that federal prosecutors can, in some cases, obtain journalist records. Those exceptions include the reporters are suspected of working for agents of a foreign power or terrorist organizations. How often do you think that's going to get abused? If they're under investigation for unrelated activities, or if they obtain their information through criminal methods like breaking and entering. There are also exceptions for situations with imminent risks, like kidnappings or crimes against children. Under investigation for unrelated activities, under investigation for unrelated activities. Oh, hey, I saw you jaywalking here. Oh, it's time to seize your journalistic records. How often do you think that one gets abused? Garland was moved to act following an outcry over revelations that the department during the Trump admin, and the Obama admin, and the Bush admin, and the Clinton admin, and the other Bush admin, and the Reagan admin, and the Carter admin, and the Ford admin, and the Nixon admin. I mean, this is not a new thing. Had obtained records belonging to journalists at the Washington Post, CNN, the New York Times, a former newspaper, as part of investigations into who had disclosed government secrets related to the Russia investigation and other national security matters. Others whose records were obtained were Democratic members of Congress and aides and former White House counsel Don McGahn. Garland's announcement came after President Biden said he would not allow the Justice Department to seize journalists' phone records and emails, calling the practices simply wrong. After that, Garland and other senior Justice Department staffers held meetings with representatives of news media organizations. In the memo, Garland also said he would support federal legislation to add protections for journalists. Media advocates praised the policy shift. The AG has taken the necessary and momentous steps to protect press freedom at a critical time, said Bruce Brown, the executive director of the Reporters Committee for Freedom of the Press. This historic new policy will ensure that journalists can do their job of informing the public without fear of federal government intrusion into the relationships with confidential sources. I call bullshit on all of this, especially given the fact that there are limited exceptions. Look, if you have spoken out against the government, and we're seeing this with just what we saw right before with the Capitol Selfie Fest, if you are speaking out against the government, then the government is going to find a way. They will find a way to get the records from you. They will find a way to get your records, to sit down and show you and show the world who it was that was doing bad. Bad by them, at least. They're not going to let this go, and like I said, I mean, you have the exception if the journalist is being investigated for an outside cause. Hey, you were speeding. We think you were speeding. We got this license plate. It looks like it belongs to you. And we also think that you were involved in leaking information from the White House. Hey, yeah, we just got to seize your records here because we're investigating something else entirely. But, you know, now we've got to get your journalistic records too. We've got to see where you were to clear your name for what was going on here. They will find a way to get these fucking records. This is not new. So, whether Garland does this or not, he's left enough openings where they're still going to find a way to come back and see this. All right, let's grab one from the Hill. Actually, let me throw a little bit of music up for a second because the allergy season is kicking in once again, or maybe I've got the Delta variant, one of the two, but I have got to step away from the camera for a half a second. So let's throw a little bit of music up. And Alright, sorry about that. Those damned allergies are just everywhere, man. And I had a really, really good year for allergies last year, so I am paying the price this year, I can tell you that. I had like 1 day of allergies last year, and yeah, now I'm paying the price because it's like 3 or 4 times a week at this point. Let's have a look at here in the title card of this particular episode. From the Hill, Changing America, shocking poll finds many Americans now want to secede from the United States. This is from Adam Barnes. This is in the Changing America section of The Hill. Support for secession is growing among every partisan group in the months following the January 6th Selfie Fest at the Capitol, but particularly among Southern Republicans, a new poll found. Bright Line Watch, in conjunction with YouGov, found that citizen support for their state or region to secede from the U.S. is greatest in the South. where support was already highest and has the greatest historical precedent. Overall, 37% of respondents indicated a willingness to secede. I think the willingness to secede actually stems from Texas more than anything else, because they were also an independent country at one point, but also California, because as soon as the Donald came in, they said, "We have to secede, we will secede." And I'm like, okay, bye. Pay off your debt before you go. Oh, wait, you can't do that. Support among Southern Republicans grew from polling conducted in January, which showed 50% were in favor of secession, but the number leapt to 66% in June. By the summer, we anticipated political tempers may have cooled, but not necessarily as a result of any great reconciliation, but perhaps from sheer exhaustion. After the relentless drama of Trump, the group wrote in an analysis of the survey's findings. Respondents were asked, would you support or oppose your state seceding from the U.S. to form a new union or join a new union with list states in the new union? Bright Line Watch constructed 5 distinct regions that a particular respondent state would join and added that the relevant states to the question. Bright Line Watch warns that numbers might be skewed given the complexities of the matter, and because the group believes it's an issue that the respondents were very unlikely to have considered carefully. The group reiterated that respondents on either side of the political aisle indicated some support for the idea, and that it rose within both partisan groups. Republicans are the most secessionists in the South and mountain regions, whereas it is Democrats on the West Coast and the Northeast, the group writes. In the narrowly divided Heartland region, it is a partisan independent who find the idea most attractive. YouGov collected the responses of 2,750 Americans in a public survey from June 16th to 26th of 2021. All right, full stop. Full out stop. Stop trying to fucking secede. Stay and fight, you fucking cowards. I'm going to tell you that right now. Because if this last civil war that we had in this country was any indication, the government's not going to let go of any of their resources. You understand that. You have the resources in your state. The government can't produce the resources. They took your state into the union for a reason, and they're not going to let you go. First and foremost. So, you'll come out of here, you'll secede, you'll get your ass kicked, and then you're going to wind up back in the same shitty situation that you were in to begin with. Habeas corpus will get suspended once again. We'll have another Lincoln in there, and he'll say unification while he's slowly breaking down your fucking will. That's first and full stop. And these, especially the Republican states that want to go, these blue states need your income to survive. They come off and say that they're the ones that are paying for your welfare, but it is the other way around. You are paying for them to continue going. And like California, if they seceded, they'd be called on their national debt or their state debt to the national government right away. That would be the first thing. And then they'd probably be brought back into the territory with no voting delegates. But also, if they did try to secede, the Colorado River would be dammed off immediately, taking away all of their fresh water. They would have to learn how to refine and desalinify seawater, because that'd be the only source of water they had anymore. They would tap Big Bear Lake very quickly. If you want especially those of you who like freedom, there is no seceding away from this. If you try to secede, they're going to come back after you. So stay and fight for the freedom that your parents, your forefathers, promised that you would have in this country. Stay and fight for it. But that's what we're seeing going off this. I do find it funny that, like I said, California, Portland, Oregon, Washington State. Oh yeah, we're Democrats. We're going to secede away from the union because they won't move progressive enough, fast enough for us. And they'll be the first ones begging to come back in once they've tapped out their infinite resources up there. Or they have to put people back to work logging. And you know that the eastern parts of those states are going to look at this and say, no, we want to stay over there. We like those people better. But yeah, that's what we see coming back up out of this. All right, from the Blaze. President Biden backs off on a claim that Facebook is killing people after company's scathing response. From Carlos Garcia. President Biden walked back his accusation against Facebook after the social media behemoth responded with a scathing statement. Come on, man. Facebook isn't killing people, Biden told reporters on Monday. These 12 people are out there giving misinformation. Anyone listening to it is getting hurt by it. It's killing people. It's bad information. My hope is that Facebook, instead of taking... Did I miss a paragraph? No, I didn't. My hope is that Facebook, instead of taking it personally, that somehow I'm saying Facebook is killing people, that they would do something about that misinformation, he explained. The outrageous misinformation about the vaccine. That's what I meant. No, let's keep reading first. On Friday, Biden was leaving the White House when he addressed a reporter asked about coronavirus misinformation on social media. That's not what he was asked about. The reporter asked the president, on COVID misinformation, what is your message to platforms like Facebook? They're killing people, Biden responded. I mean, really, the only pandemic we have is among the unvaccinated, and they're killing people. See, on this, I don't think that he knew that he was talking about Facebook. I'm sure that he heard COVID misinformation, and that's where he stopped listening or couldn't hear anymore, because he's ancient and senile, and he has a canned response. He's got a script in his pocket that says, if somebody says COVID misinformation, you say killing people. I don't think he knew he was talking about Facebook, to be completely honest. But Facebook heard it and they said, oh no, we've got to stand back against this, because if people find out that we're killing people, then they won't give us their information. And I feed on happy, healthy information. I get rich off selling your information. On Saturday, the company's vice president of the integrity fired off another missive against the Biden accusation. The fact is, the vaccine acceptance among Facebook users in the U.S. has increased. These and other facts tell a very different story to the one promoted by the administration in recent days, wrote Guy Rosen. Since January, vaccine acceptance on the part of Facebook users in the U.S. has increased by 10 to 15 percentage points, and racial and ethnic disparities in acceptance have shrunk considerably. Some of the populations that had the lowest acceptance in January had the highest increases since, he added. Facebook also claimed the company has taken down over 18 million instances of coronavirus misinformation on its platform, while also labeling and reducing the visibility of 167 million other pieces of content. Yeah, we also had the COVID warning on the live stream last night because I had COVID in the title. So that's Biden didn't know what he was saying. He was told, he's got the script to say, oh, misinformation, man, that's killing people. And that's what he spouted off on, and Facebook just happened to be the one in the line of fire when he did. So, let's grab one from Politico here. Senate Democrats propose requiring women to register for the military draft. From Burgess Everett and Connor O'Brien. Senate Democrats are proposing a sweeping rewrite of the military draft laws aimed at requiring women to register for the selective service system, according to a draft obtained and authored by the Senate Armed Services Chair Jack Reed and obtained by Politico. The changes to selective service could be attached to the National Defense Authorization Act, a defense policy bill that's one of the few pieces of legislation considered a must-pass by Congress. The move would reignite a contentious debate over whether women should be required to register for the draft, a move the House and Senate have each considered in recent years, though the change has never become law. The language proposed by Reed would expand registration for the service to all Americans, striking explicit references to males. It's expected to be considered during the committee markup this week. Floor action on the bill would wait until later this year. A spokesperson for Reed declined to comment. Currently, law states that U.S. men must register for the service when they turn 18 for potential military conscription. Though no one has been drafted to the military in more than 4 decades, men who fail to register for the draft can be fined, imprisoned, or denied federal jobs. Calls to expand the draft to include women have grown in recent years, particularly after the Pentagon opened all combat roles to women in 2015. A congressionally mandated commission that reviewed the draft also backed the change last year. Multiple lawsuits have taken aim at the current draft law, alleging it's unconstitutional. Supreme Court in June declined to hear a case brought by the National Coalition for Men challenging the male-only draft. Whether to include women in the draft became the subject of a marquee defense battle on Capitol Hill in 2016. The Senate voted to make the changes as part of its annual defense policy bill, which with the backing of then Senate Armed Services Chair John McCain, despite opposition mostly raised by conservative Republicans. Here's reality. First and foremost, we need to stop going to fucking war. We need to stop going into foreign theaters where we exhaust all our resources forever. I'm looking at you, Afghanistan, and I'm also looking at you, Vietnam. We need to stop doing that shit. And then we won't need a draft. And realistically, the draft is there. The draft was put in place, conscription, to defend the homeland in case we get some reason, somebody gets crazy enough to come over here and try to raise the fight and bring the fight to our soil, which hasn't happened since 1812, with the exception of a couple of suicide attacks on Pearl Harbor and New York City. Other than that, we really haven't had a lot of big open invasion coming in to our soil. But that's what the draft should be for. It shouldn't be to go fight a politician's war across the country or across the world. I'm looking at you, Vietnam. But regardless, and if it's getting to the point that the fighting is spilling oil over onto U.S. soil, then yes, have the draft. Because we need to push that back to protect the ones who are actually vulnerable. As far as women go, here's the problem I have with that. If you're going to open the combat roles to women, you need to keep all of the requirements the same. Now, if a large, muscle-bound woman is badass enough to beat all the same tests that the men have to go through, then yeah, absolutely. Put them on the front line if they want to be. If they want to be. But they have to pass the same test. They don't get to have the girly test. And I also understand that. I mean, if you're drafting, you're also doing things for field medic. You're also going down routes for cook on the line, nurses, maintenance around the facilities, many other things that would satisfy your service requirement to get you your free college, or many of the other things that are offered to people who join the military. Your free health care for life, all these other things. So I understand the equal protection off of this, but if we're doing this simply for combat, then no, I don't believe that should be the case. But that's what we see going on with that. From CNN, Twitter temporarily suspends Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene, who has a plan for vaccine misinformation. From Donnie O'Sullivan and Paul LeBlanc. Twitter on Monday evening temporarily suspended Marjorie Taylor Greene after she shared misinformation about COVID-19 vaccines, a company spokesperson told CNN. The Georgia Republican, who has a track record of incendiary rhetoric, will not be able to tweet for 12 hours due to Twitter's policy against people who repeatedly share misinformation. The social media platform had labeled 2 tweets from Greene as misleading in recent days. If she continues to share misinformation about COVID-19 through her Twitter account, Greene could be suspended from the platform permanently, therefore silencing a sitting member of Congress. Mind you, one who doesn't represent her people very well because she has no committee assignments. She can't make laws and she can only be the yes or no vote on bills. But regardless, a sitting member of Congress has been censored on the public square. The temporary suspension comes as the White House has struck a confrontational posture with social media platforms over the prevalence of misleading claims about coronavirus vaccines as cases tick up nationwide. I'm urging all Americans... Oh, that's the Surgeon General. That's not Marjorie Taylor Greene. I'm urging all Americans to help slow the spread of health misinformation during the COVID-19 pandemic and beyond. U.S. Surgeon General Dr. Vivek Murthy wrote in a 22-page advisory released last week. Health misinformation is a serious threat to public health. It can cause confusion, sow mistrust, harm people's health, and undermine public health efforts. Limiting the spread of the health misinformation is a moral and civic imperative that will require a whole-of-society effort. Yeah, no, it isn't any of that. It's a way for you to control the information so that we have to go by your truth. This is 1984 level shit. President Biden has specifically called out Facebook over the dissemination of COVID-19 vaccine misinformation, but he backed off his recent accusation that the company was directly responsible for killing people and suggested it was merely allowing misinformation to spread. So, one of the first, because a lot of people are coming out here and saying, well, this is a dangerous person, and they need to permanently ban this person from all social media because she represents the most dangerous ideas of the GOP. Why? And we know the answer, but I want to hear this from sites like the Huffington Post that put this out here. Why are you so afraid of a small woman from a rural Georgia district who has no committee assignments, who doesn't get to make a decision on how a law gets drafted because she can't sit on any committee to do so? Her entire role in Congress right now is to say yay or nay. That's it. Why are you so afraid of her? But apparently this woman strikes fear in the hearts of all the people because of her dangerous misinformation. Fucking spare me. You planted her in there so she could suck up headlines. And so that you would have another demon to sit out there and talk about in the absence of the Hong Kong president that got voted out. Alright. Let me grab one from Fox 9. KMSP. Actually, we'll be right back one more time. Sorry about that, guys. This has been a really, really bad allergy day, apparently. And I don't notice it until I start talking. That's when it starts welling back up. All right, let's get back into this here right away, because we still got a bunch of stuff to go over. Search for Minnesota lawmaker's residency uncovers domestic assault cases. From Tom Leiden over at Fox 9 KMSP. In searching for State Representative John Thompson's residency, Fox 9 has uncovered 4 cases of domestic violence with allegations Thompson's punched, hit, and choked women. According to the police reports from 2003 to 2009, in some cases the assaults happened in the presence of young children. Questions about Thompson's residency were raised after he was stopped by St. Paul police on July 4th for not having a front license plate. Thompson, who accused St. Paul's police of racially profiling him, presented a Wisconsin driver's license during the stop, a license he has renewed as recently as November of 2020 when he was elected to the Minnesota legislature. The domestic violence cases stretch back to October of 2003 in Superior, Wisconsin, when Thompson was arrested after he allegedly struck his girlfriend in the face with an open and closed fist. The woman's 5-year-old daughter witnessed the assault, which happened in a supermarket parking lot. Thompson's girlfriend said she and her child were homeless and declined to cooperate. Superior police said Thompson fled the scene and resisted arrest. When he was found a short time later, Thompson eventually pled guilty in Douglas County, Wisconsin to a reduced charge of disorderly conduct and resisting arrest. Thompson allegedly attacked the same girlfriend nearly a year later. August 2004, at her Eagan apartment, police arrived after a 911 hang-up call. She said during the argument with Thompson, he broke the phone cord and put both hands around her neck and began choking her. During the struggle, Thompson allegedly said, "I'll choke you until you can't breathe anymore." She said she ran out of the apartment screaming, but Thompson grabbed her and dragged her back into the apartment. She said she even tried to escape through a window. Well, this sounds like a charming fellow. She told police that Thompson became angry when she dialed 911 from another phone and began hitting her in the head and punching her in the face when he grabbed her and threw her on the kitchen table, which broke. She said 3 children, her daughter and Thompson's 2 sons, witnessed most of the assault. The girlfriend recounted to police that during an argument at the pool of the apartment complex the day before, Thompson allegedly belittled her daughter, calling her a series of expletives that culminated with "fuck you, fuck your daughter, I hope you both die." Boy, this guy sounds charming. The woman said she and her daughter had recently moved to Eagan. She didn't know anyone. She didn't have any money. Eagan police took her and her daughter to a domestic abuse shelter. The case was referred to CPS and the Dakota County Attorney for review for possible charges. In September of 2009, St. Paul police officers responded to a call of domestic violence involving Thompson and 2 women. Thompson and the women were fighting about a cell phone he received from another girlfriend. It is unclear from the report if it is the girlfriend from the previous cases. During that 2009 incident, according to reports, as the yelling escalated, Thompson pulled out his penis in front of his girlfriend and 2 young children and said, "I'm the man. You all can suck my dick." If it wasn't for the fact that he was beating the crap out of these girls prior to that, that would have been based. But because he, as a man, twice the size probably of these women, decided to flex his muscles against them, that takes all the bastedness away from them. That takes it all away. Thompson denied he ever exposed himself. The Ramsey County attorney declined to file charges. So, see... Oh, wait, there's more. This one gets better. St. Paul police responded to another domestic assault involving a different woman on March 2010. The victim said she had been with Thompson for 11 years, and they have 2 children together. Okay, do you know that he was fucking that chick in Superior? During the argument, Thompson allegedly removed his penis from his pants and told her to kiss the tip in front of relatives and children. Later, she told police Thompson grabbed her around the neck with both hands and told her, "I'll choke you until your voice box stops." Now, see, none of this came up during the campaign. That's interesting. Because, well, switch the parties. That's what I have to say to that. If this was some state rep who was white and Republican doing the same thing, he'd never get past the primary. They'd come out, the FBI would dig up everything they had on him, and the DNC would dig up everything they had on him, and this would be front page news, including probably a picture of the dude's penis. You're telling me that this never came up during the primary? Anywhere? Now, that's on top of the fact that, yes, he had a Wisconsin driver's license that he had renewed as late as last year when he was a representative. And none of this came up. You guys didn't do enough homework to come out and find out that this guy lives in my state. And he's running for office in your state, probably because he can't get past the primary process in my state right now. Because they know, because they actually do their homework over here. And none of this came up. But that's where we go. And of course, on top of this, from the Hill, Minnesota state lawmaker facing calls to resign following domestic violence, indecent exposure allegations from Joseph Choi. I think he has to resign because he's not a resident of Minnesota. He's not a legal resident over there. He's a legal resident of this state. He won't meet residency requirements. He has to reside at this point, as far as I understand. From Joseph Choi. Minnesota lawmakers are calling for the first-term state rep John Thompson to resign after a recent traffic stop unveiled a history of alleged domestic abuse and indecent exposure. According to the Washington Post, where democracy goes to die in darkness, a recently surfaced police report revealed that Thompson, who ran a campaign last year that he promised police reform, was accused of choking and hitting his girlfriend on numerous occasions and was once accused of exposing himself to several women while children were present. In 2004, Thompson's girlfriend alleged that he choked her and beat her and threw her against the kitchen table. Thompson's children and his girlfriend's daughter were reportedly witnesses of the violence. According to the Post, the Ramsey County attorney declined to file charges against Thompson in 2 other incidences which he allegedly exposed his genitals to women because of poor witness info. Thompson's lawyer, Jordan Kushner, posted a statement on Facebook calling into question the validity of the police report, saying they are a smear campaign fueled by police groups. Mr. Thompson challenges the authenticity of the police reports that have been circulated to the press. Mr. Thompson and his wife, the only person whom Mr. Thompson would have been with at the times of the incidences, categorically denied that any of the inflammatory allegations, including but not limited to choking anyone or exposing himself, ever occurred. Mr. Thompson's wife further does not recall and does not believe she ever made such allegations, Kushner wrote. Now, see, you can try to pull off this bullshit, and many of your partisan people will believe what you're saying here. This is just a smear campaign against Republicans, or by Republicans, who don't want to see this guy in office because of the color of his skin. See, yeah, you can come back and try to pull that bullshit. But see, there's court records in Wisconsin of the fact that this at least was brought forward. Not necessarily a conviction, but there's court record of the fact that this was brought forward. That somebody, at least at one point, had a police incident with this guy. And that was from 2003, 2004, long before this guy probably ever thought about running for office. So the records do exist. Do with that information what you may, but the records do exist. The police reports are a product of the campaign to silence an American African man who speaks out against powerful and abusive interests, and not the product of any effort to uncover the truth, he added. The truth is he's got police reports filed against him from long before he ever tried to run for office. Do with that information what you will, and draw the conclusions that come from the conviction record, not necessarily the arrest record, but also keep in mind that somebody made these phone calls. And it wasn't to discredit somebody who was planning on running for office, unless he was planning on running for office for 17 fucking years. So, that's what we need to sit back and figure out from this. And yeah, I can't believe that none of this came up before any of this. But that's where we go from that. From Newsweek, speaking more candidate on campaign news, Larry Elder threatens lawsuit over allegation he didn't qualify as gubernatorial candidate. From Carly Mayberry. After announcing last Monday he was running for governor in the California recall election, conservative talk show host Larry Elder has hit a bump in the road to Sacramento. The state of California on Saturday released a list of 41 candidates running on the recall election against Democratic Governor Gavin Newsom on September 14th, and to his surprise, Elder wasn't on it. That's because California Secretary of State Dr. Shirley Weber and her candidate filing an election night reporting team said Elder didn't qualify due to incomplete redacted or unredacted income tax returns that were filed. Outraged, Elder said no one has ever been disqualified for such a reason and declared that he's prepared to go to court over the matter. Never has anyone been disqualified from the ballot here in California for a reason like that, Elder tweeted on Monday, noting a new law that was passed by a supermajority Democrat legislature to force Trump to turn over his tax returns to get on the 2020 ballot. Elder, who is also an attorney, said the California Supreme Court struck that law down unanimously for presidential races, but let it stand for gubernatorial elections. The Secretary of State is either saying that we did not redact sufficient info on my returns, or we redacted info that should not have been redacted. We're trying to ascertain details, Elder said, noting his campaign carefully submitted over 200 pages of 5 years of tax returns. Our campaign has reached out to the Secretary of State, but the calls have not been returned. We are preparing legal action and are confident that Larry Elder will be on the certified list of candidates for governing, Ying Ma, an Elder campaign spokeswoman, told Newsweek on Monday. Do you think it's because he's a black Republican? Do you think that's a part of the reason they're doing this? Now, and Ron just said the same thing. A person's taxes, that should be a thing where people are doing that because they say, I've got nothing to hide, not necessarily something that can be compelled by law. We still have the Fourth Amendment in this country. We have protections against unlawful searches and seizures, and I would consider that to be an unlawful search and seizure. Now, if I ran for office, I would probably turn mine over to say, hey, have a look. See, I'm not getting any special interest money here. I'm a poor boy from Wisconsin, but I want to come back and fight for the change. But it shouldn't have to be compelled to by a court. That's the problem. It's the compulsion that I have a problem with. A lot of these people have, at some point or another, said, okay, I've got nothing to hide. Here, have my tax returns. But the compulsion is the problem. But we will see what goes on with that. And that is a California state law thing, so we'll see how that goes. From Fox News, LA County mask mandates, governors refuse to follow lead on guidelines for their own states. From Ron Blitzer, coronavirus case numbers are spiking in areas across the country with the rise of the Delta variant. But while LA County, California is responding with a return of mandatory mask usage, several states are refusing to do the same. Unlike during previous periods in the pandemic that saw rises in cases and deaths, Americans now have the availability of several vaccines, which a number of governors are pointing to as a reason to let their residents decide what precautions to take. For over a year and a half, South Carolinians have learned about the virus. They know what to do to protect themselves from it, and the vaccine is available to anyone who wants it, a spokesperson for South Carolina Governor Henry McMaster told WBTW. A day after LA County said it was bringing back mask requirements for indoor spaces, McMaster's office said the governor will not allow for the restrictions of South Carolinians in any way. Similarly, Washington Governor Jay Inslee stated that he has no plans to require masks, encouraging people to get shots instead. That is not under active consideration at the moment, Inslee said about the mask mandate, according to MyNorthwest.com. But I will tell you, the folks that live in these vaccine deserts, they have the right to protect themselves, and the best way is to get their friends and neighbors vaccinated. Inslee acknowledged the sharp rise in case numbers, but said, the acceleration has not been significant enough in our book to warrant that. And they're still going to try to cook the books, by the way, to make it seem like, oh, only people who didn't get the vaccine are getting this. On Tuesday, Washington announced that 70% of residents at 16 and older have received at least one vaccine dose so far. We're using the tool of vaccinations, Inslee said. That's the ultimate answer to this pandemic. We don't want to be wearing masks for the next 32 years. Vaccines stop this thing dead. No, they do not. No, they do not. Florida, of course, is not going to do the mask mandate, and he came out and he's already on record for saying this. Look, here's the reality. This shouldn't be a government compulsion thing either. It really shouldn't. If the government comes out and says, we think that you should wear a mask, a lot of people are going to just wear a mask because, well, they were told to by the government, and the government has the ultimate authority, apparently, according to in their little worlds. So all they have to do is suggest, but this requirement thing, this is another compulsion thing off of this. And I think Inslee's looking at the fact that if he goes and does another compulsory thing, he's not gonna pass re-election again. Furthermore, it's probably going to be used against him because I guarantee you, if we get out to a point where we have another primary because the president is, well, dead, we have another big primary like that, then we're probably going to see a case where Inslee runs for president again. But with that in mind, I mean, they keep telling me that the vaccine works, even though we've seen enough evidence that it may not work as well as they say it does. But if you want to wear a mask, wear a mask. And if you own a business and you want people to wear a mask to come in and shop in your business, then you put a sign up front that says, masks required in our location. And if you don't like that, don't shop here. End of story. That should be a private business thing to do, not a government thing. And if you don't want to shop at the business that has the mask sign outside, then don't shop at the business that has the mask sign outside. It's that easy. It's that simple. But people will still make a big deal out of this. From NBC. After deadly riots in South Africa, Army of Volunteers leads defense cleanup efforts. 212 people killed with these protests, by the way. This is from Linda Givtash. Noxious smoke from days of riots and widespread looting hovered over parts of the lush seaside city over the weekend as residents came into the streets to defend their homes and businesses from further violence. "We need to stand their ground," said Margaret Westerhoff, 42, at a volunteer-erected traffic checkpoint at the edge of a suburb in Bolito. Normally an interior designer, Westerhoff offered to serve as a media liaison for the community organization that sprung up in response to the unrest. "It's our duty to support the local authorities to patrol our areas to keep our businesses safe," she added. Nationwide protests began with the arrest of former President Jacob Zuma on July 7th. He was sentenced to 15 months in prison for contempt of court after failing to appear before an inquiry investigating corruption and state capture during his administration. What began as a political demonstration devolved into destruction, not just in Durban, a city of 3.7 million, where many of Zuma's supporters live, but the administrative capital of Pretoria and the largest urban center, Johannesburg. Tires were set afire in the streets and shopping malls were gutted. At least 212 people were killed across the country. Over 2,550 people were arrested and more suspects were under surveillance. President Cyril Ramaphosa said Friday in a televised address to the country. Ramaphosa admitted that the government had been poorly prepared to respond to such levels of violence in an effort to regain stability. 25,000 troops within South Africa's National Defence Force were deployed to support police around the country, he said. Until that added security is in place and quelling fears, Westerhoff said the hundreds of volunteers in Bolito will control access in and out of the area. "We really feel that we need to be present, vigilant, and we can't let our guard down just yet," she said to the hundreds of people keeping the checkpoints manned in 4 to 12-hour shifts. After days of violence, Westerhoff said the sight of a truck belonging to a supermarket chain breezing through the checkpoint Saturday was nothing short of a miracle. Durban stores that weren't ransacked have rationed food, gasoline, and other supplies to stretch out stock after the distribution of goods was disrupted by truck burnings and highway closings. While Bolito residents remained on guard, in other areas, the cleanup was underway. About 3 dozen volunteers from a Durban church methodically swept up debris, including raw chicken pieces from a food plant on the streets of a business park. So, and this is another one of those things. I mean, the government could come in and coordinate a cleanup, and they can do so at a moment's notice, but it's going to be government workers doing government work, which means that they come around, turn around, and take a break here, there, and everywhere to do so. Whereas the people who are actually in the community know best the community and the needs of the community, and they should be the ones who are responsible for the not responsible for the cleanup. The people who did the violence should be responsible for the cleanup, but barring that, the people who know and love the community should be the ones doing this. They know how to get it done. They know their community. And volunteer forces always work better than governments do. Always. The private market and volunteerism always work better than government compulsion and mandate. So that's what we see going on from that. Let's grab one from the Daily Mail. 1619 Project founder Nicole Hannah-Jones sparks outrage with Unearthed 2019 podcast saying Communist Cuba is among the least racist countries in the world because socialism means the least inequality. Yeah, they're not even trying to hide the ball anymore at this point. From James Gordon for DailyMail.com. 1619 Project founder Nicole Hannah-Jones has come under fire after her comments she made in 2019 about Cuba being the most equal country in the world because of its socialist government resurfaced online. Hannah-Jones appeared on a podcast with Ezra Klein of Vox and the New York Times, a former newspaper, in 2019 and was asked her thoughts on places around the world that had a viable and sufficiently ambitious integration agenda. She replied that she thought Cuba was among the most equal and multiracial country in the Western Hemisphere due to its socialist society. The most equal, multiracial country in our hemisphere, it would be Cuba, she said. Her remarks were dragged back into the spotlight this weekend as Cuba is roiled by protests against its communist regime, with activists crying for freedom and expressing anger over rising prices, goods shortages, and poor health care amid the coronavirus pandemic. Critics sounding off on social media panned Hannah-Jones for her perceived ignorance of the state of the island nation. Cuba has the least inequality between black and white people any place really in the hemisphere, Hannah-Jones said on the podcast. I mean, the Caribbean, most of the Caribbean, it's hard to count because the white population in a lot of those countries is very, very small. A lot of these countries are run by black folks, but in places that are truly at least biracial countries, Cuba actually has the least inequality. And that's largely due to socialism, which I'm sure no one wants to hear. The rediscovered remarks sparked disbelief among many commentators online. This is the person progressives want teaching history to your kids. Crazy 1619 creator Nicole Hannah-Jones said Cuba is among the most equal countries because of socialism. I mean, it is. Everybody's starving equally. Why don't she move to Cuba then? Let her see how the people are treated for a while, then see what she thinks. Nicole Hannah-Jones said Cuba is among the most equal countries because of socialism. Nicole Hannah-Jones isn't wrong, though. Cuba does have the least inequality. Everyone there, regardless of their race, is starving, dying from hunger, getting arrested for no reason, and miserable. And she's being glorified by the mainstream media in the U.S. So, yeah, some animals are more equal than others. I like that. So, that's what's happening with Cuba. Let's grab another one here from The Hill. Gloria Estefan says the U.S. should get involved in Cuba. From Carolyn Vakil. Okay, when was the last time this woman put an album out? Now, I will admit the fact that she's put out some very good music and some very genre-defining and generation-defining music throughout her career, but when's the last time this person was actually relevant in pop culture? Cuban-born pop singer Gloria Estefan called on the U.S. and the UN to take action against the Cuban government following recent protests in the country. My heart hurts for the Cuban people on the island and what they have already done or gone through for 62 years. But now they're saying enough despite the beatings, the murders, the incarcerations, the abuses of power, the starvation, and the attempted destruction of their spirits. They need our support, and that of the democratic and free countries of the world, Estefan wrote on Instagram in both English and Spanish. The UN is and especially the United States, must strongly condemn the repressive and violent measures being taken by the Cuban government against their own people. Spread the images, spread the word, she added. The three-time Grammy winner is the latest of several celebrities to draw attention to protests that started earlier this month. The protests come amid a coronavirus pandemic that has hurt Cuba's tourism industry, as well as an ongoing U.S. sanction. Increased inflation, power outages, and shortages of critical supplies of medicine and food have exacerbated the situation. Plus the fact that the rich politicians keep getting fucking richer, and they keep taking more away from the people. I love how The Hill is trying to twist this into still being the U.S.'s fault. The protests are some of the largest in decades, and there are hopes that they could lead to meaningful regime change. Other celebrities who have drawn attention to the recent protests include the Cuban-American singer Pitbull, Cuban-American singer Camila Cabello, and retired American actress Eva Mendes. Last week, Cuban President Miguel Diaz-Canel blamed the U.S. embargo for politics of economic asphyxiation, which he said was having a cumulative effect on the country, NBC News reported. Anthony Blinken has denied claims that the protests are a result or product of anything the U.S. has done. They're really not. I mean, yes, the fact that the American people can't go down there and open a factory because of the embargo. The American businessmen can't open a factory down there to get cheap goods. That is exacerbating it somewhat, but the fact that even if you started to infuse some sort of economic growth into that country by outside investors, it's still going to make the politicians richer, and the workers are going to stay in the same place that they are. As far as U.S. involvement, I don't know. I don't think that's the way to do it. Let them figure out their stuff on their own, and if people want to bring private charity down there and they can get it past the guards, then we can do private charity. But government to government, no, I don't think that's the answer. In fact, I see that as making an even more corrupt regime spring back up. But that's where we see. From the BBC, Ben & Jerry's to stop sales in the occupied West Bank. BBC gives no author. I wonder why that is, by the way. Because they never do. The BBC never has an author featured. Ben & Jerry's has said it will end the sale of its ice cream in the Israeli-occupied West Bank and East Jerusalem. The company said it was inconsistent with our values for Ben & Jerry's ice cream to be sold in the occupied Palestinian territory. Israeli Prime Minister Naftali Bennett said the move was morally wrong and would prove to be financially wrong. Why? They don't want to sell there. You can't compel them to do so. It's the free market at work. The West Bank and East Jerusalem have been under Israeli control since the 1967 Middle East War. More than 600,000 Jews live in about 140 settlements there. Most of the international community considers the settlements illegal under international law, though Israel disputes this. In a statement shared to its Twitter and Instagram pages on Monday, Ben & Jerry's said the decision reflected the concerns of fans and trusted partners. The changes would be made by allowing current licensing arrangements to expire at the end of next year, it added. We have a long-standing partnership with our licensee, who manufactures Ben & Jerry's ice cream in Israel and distributes it in the region, the statement said. We've been working to change this, and so we have informed our licensee that we will not renew the license agreement when it expires at the end of next year. Ben & Jerry's also runs 2 scoop shops in Israel and said it would distribute its goods in Israel through a different agreement, the details of which would be announced when we're ready. So this is a virtue signal. Of course, they're not going to turn away the money that they're getting from tourism in Israel proper. But we're not going to sell in the West Bank anymore because it's Israel-occupied territory. Now, if they don't want to sell in the West Bank, then that's on them. They have a contract to fulfill and a license to fulfill. So they do have to fulfill their license or go to court to get it annulled. But once that contract is up, once the contract is over, then yeah, they can do whatever the hell they want. It's a free market. They can do so. And Israel can't come around and compel them to do so. But that means that I also don't have to sit back and eat Ben & Jerry's because they're woke as shit and they're telling me about it. And that's always been the way I feel about these companies. For the most part, with the exception of Chick-fil-A, and that's only because somebody else went digging into their politics, and Wendy's too, by the way, but we forgot about that one already. Wendy's is also company-wide, a fairly conservative company. As somebody went digging and showed us that last year. When they said, see, Wendy's donated this much to the Trump campaign. Well, that's fine. Somebody went digging for it. They didn't get on the soapbox and tell me, we must re-elect President Trump because reasons. They silently made a donation, and then some somebody from Open Secrets said, see, boycott Wendy's because they donated to the evil orange drumpler. So I can still go there. And same with Chick-fil-A. They didn't come out on the soapbox and said, no gay marriage, no gay marriage. Their owner, not the company, their owner quietly made donations to Christian groups. And then somebody went back and fucking dug it up. But Ben & Jerry's is showing me what their politics are, and I don't want to see it. And I'm not going to go shop there. End of story. You notice I also don't have My Pillow, nor do I support their or urge other people to buy it. Mike Lindell is kind of a nuts. I mean, he's got a good story, but I know what his politics are, and I know the agenda that he's trying to push, so I don't buy his product. End of story. So that's what I see off of that. But yeah, if they don't want to sell there, that's fine. Don't sell there. But when you come out and tell me why you don't want to sell there, don't be surprised when I don't go and buy your shitty ice cream. All right. We have got one here from NPR. And remember, NPR plasters their donate button everywhere around their website. So why aren't you donating yet? It's not your money, comrade. It's our money. Outrage as a business model. How Ben Shapiro is using Facebook to build an empire. This is from Miles Park. And remember, donate to National Progressive Radio because they need your money to spread their communist ideals. I mean, not your money, our money, comrade. In 2021, Ben Shapiro rules Facebook. The conservative podcast host and author's personal Facebook page has more followers than the Washington Post, and he drives an engagement machine unparalleled by anything else in the world's biggest social networking site. Well, it could be that, or it could just be the fact that the Washington Post fucking blows. An NPR analysis of social media data found that over the past year, stories published by the site Shapiro founded, The Daily Wire, received more likes, shares, and comments on Facebook than any other news publisher by a wide margin. Even legacy news organizations that have broken major stories or produced groundbreaking investigative work don't come anywhere close. Well, that's because they have a bias. Oh, but the left-wing bias, it's the most popular bias in the world, and that's because everybody loves Joe Biden, the most popular president in history. Daily Wire articles with headlines such as Book Review, proof that wokeness is projection by nervous, racist white women who can't talk to minorities without elaborate codes, regularly garner tens of thousands of shares for the site, and Shapiro is turning that Facebook reach into a rapidly expanding, cost-efficient media empire, one that experts worry may be furthering polarization in the United States. And not the fact that the New York Times, a former newspaper, comes out with tax returns that they obtained illegally from the former president. And continues to tell you that all Republicans are evil that want to put everybody back in chains, and only Democrats can be virtuous and good. There's a demand among certain subsets of the public for outrage politics, said Jamie Seattle, director of the social networks and political psychology lab at the College of William and Mary in Virginia. This happens on both the left and the right, but people who do this on the right have just found a lot more successful ways of doing it. The Daily Wire did not respond to interview requests for NPR for the story. The site produces little original reporting, but instead mostly repackages journalism from traditional news organizations with a conservative slant. That alone wouldn't be noteworthy. The circle of life online means information is written and rewritten in a seemingly infinite loop. But the Daily Wire has turned anger into an art form and recycled content in the business model. Guys, I would be really careful where you're treading on this because a lot of you fuckers are doing the same thing at this point. One of you breaks it, and then the rest of you cover it. In May, the Daily Wire generated more Facebook engagement from its articles than the New York Times, the Washington Post, NBC News, and CNN combined. Other conservative outlets such as The Blaze, Breitbart, and The Western Journal that publish aggregated and opinion content aimed at invoking outrage have also generally been more successful at generating engagement than legacy news outlets over the past year, according to NPR's analysis, which used data compiled by the media intelligence company Newswhip. Well, yeah, that's because all these other outlets suck. And I specifically try not to, as often as I can, use the Daily Wire or the Blaze for any of my sources. They make a great news aggregator. They make a great place where I can come up and say, I want to investigate this headline, this headline, this headline, this headline, and my audience sure like this headline. But as you see, I am reading from the AP, Politico, The Hill, Fox 9, Fox News, NBC, Daily Mail. I'm almost never using the Daily Wire, and even if I do, it's once in a while. So I can come up and tell you, do my op-ed piece on my own. I don't need the Daily Wire to come back and hold me back up. And the only reason I use Daily Wire is if it's one of those egregious stories that nobody else covered. But with that, Shapiro had to fight back. From The Hill, Ben Shapiro rips NPR following story critical of Daily Wire's business model. From Dominic Mastrangelo. Conservative pundit Ben Shapiro tore into the National Public Radio after the outlet published a story accusing him and the Daily Wire of purposefully stoking outrage and political division as a means of building a brand online. MSNBC, anyone? In a series of tweets on Monday, Shapiro mocked the public broadcasting company and cited the article focusing on him and some of his colleagues as an example of mainstream media outlets attacking or suppressing alternate viewpoints. The establishment... Is that Ben? Yeah, that is Ben. Okay, gang, the establishment media's deep desire to keep people from clicking on stories they want to read and to reestablish their traditional information monopoly, now an effort funded by the U.S. taxpayer dollars via NPR, is truly authoritarian garbage. Okay, and I know about authoritarian garbage because I support Israel and I think that we should have an Israel-centric government. Okay, gang, and I know what authoritarian garbage is. I just wrote about this in my new book coming out next week, so buy my book. This is a clear and present danger to American freedom to access information outside the media they correctly distrust. And, of course, there's an advertisement for his book. Are you guys going to go buy Shapiro's new book? I actually might. I like Shapiro's books. I don't listen to him anymore, but I do like his books. In the NPR piece, published Monday, titled Outrage as a Business Model, How Ben Shapiro is Using Facebook to Build an Empire, NPR found that the Daily Wire's Facebook page has one of the largest and most interactive followings of any publisher on the social networking site. The website, which does little original reporting and largely relies instead on aggregating national and local news stories, repackaged for a conservative audience, is home to several other prominent right-wing pundits, such as Candace Owens and Michael Knowles. The Daily Wire has turned anger into an art form and recycled content into a business model. The NPR story reported, noting the outlet has published misleading information about the coronavirus and rare side effects from the vaccines, which the nation's leading scientists have repeatedly said are safe and proven to protect against the virus. Really, because 5 Texas Democrats are fully vaccinated and all have the virus. NPR's review of stories on the Daily Wire about the commie-coof pandemic over the past 2 months found numerous stories about potential side effects from COVID-19 vaccines, the outlet reported, but none that portrayed the scientifically demonstrated efficacy of the vaccines or that focused explicitly on the hesitancy that has slowed the U.S. rollout. The rollout is done. Everybody who wants the vaccine has the vaccine. You might pick off a couple more sheep to go and get it, but for the most part, a lot of us sat down, like myself, and made an educated decision of, okay, I can get this vaccine, I'll be sick as shit for 2 days, I might get a heart attack, and I might still get the pinko fucking pox. It's not worth it to me. I can't afford to miss those 2 days of work. The place was in fucking shambles after a week off for me. Announced. Can you imagine what it would look like after a couple days of unannounced? I'm off because I can't move my arm. No, it's not worth it to me. I'm 37. I'm healthy. Even if I get the pinko pox, it'll probably knock me out for a day. But that's what they're telling you all this is. All right. From Forbes, the Olympic anti-sex cardboard beds explained. From Danny D. Placido, the 2021 Tokyo Olympics doesn't have to contend with the coronavirus. The event has already been hit with a wave of fake news. Some news outlets are claiming that this year's Olympic competitors are being asked to sleep on absurdly flimsy cardboard beds, supposedly designed to prevent casual sex, a hugely popular pastime for Olympic athletes. Yeah, they're all juiced up, jacked up, they're chads in the prime of their lives. Yeah, they want to go hit it. They want to knock some boots, you guys. I'm not surprised by that. The cardboard beds, it's been claimed, will break apart at the slightest provocation, designed to take the weight of only a solitary individual or risk collapsing into pieces. As amusing as it is to imagine some grim-faced Olympic official ordering a fleet of flimsy beds, unable to conceive of a sexual activity that doesn't require a sturdy mattress, the entire story is a complete fabrication. The rumor appears to have been sparked by Twitter, inspired by the concerns of a coronavirus spread among athletes. The cardboard beds, however, are very real, but are not designed to collapse at the weight of intimacy. The beds were planned for the Tokyo Olympics as a recycling initiative long before the spread of the pinko fucking pox. There you go. Fuck on the floor. Indeed, the cardboard beds were featured in USA Today in September of 2019 and in AP News in January of 2020 with no mention of their supposed anti-sexual properties. In fact, the beds can support 440 pounds, which, I mean, if you've seen some of these bodybuilders out there, I can imagine why you would say that, yes, you need to support that kind of weight, because some of these guys are big fucking boys. The big powerlifter guys, yeah. Those are big boys, and are reportedly sturdier than wood. While cardboard beds have long been established for use as makeshift beds and disaster shelters, the Tokyo Olympics introduced the beds as an eco-friendly gesture. The beds will be recycled into paper products after the games, with the mattress components recycled into new plastic products. The news release read, per Inside the Games, this will be the first time in Olympic and Paralympic history that all the beds and bedding are made from almost entirely renewable materials. Further proof of the bed's resilience also comes from Irish gymnast Rice McClenaghan, who posted a video debunking the anti-sex rumors, showing himself jumping repeatedly on his cardboard bed, which remains stubbornly intact. McClenaghan goes on to describe the rumor as fake news. While this year's Olympics have been peppered with many justified criticisms, ranging from the event's massive cost, its potential to contribute to the spread of the pinko pox, and its puritanical approach to marijuana, the anti-sex beds are just another example of the internet taking an assumption and accelerating it into a news story. Yeah, that I could see. And, like I said, like Quest said, fuck on the floor, in the shower, on the countertop. If you think you've got to be in a bed to have sex, well, you're as boring as my ex-girlfriend. Because there are a lot of other places you can do it. I might have to throw some music up for just a second again. But we're almost to the end. We've only got a couple more. Then we'll do Twitter trending and head out of here. Let's see. CNN, Irish gymnast jumps on Olympic Village cardboard bed to debunk anti-sex fake news. We've got some video here.
In today's episode of Fake News at the Olympic Games, the beds are meant to be anti-sex. They're made out of cardboard, yes, but apparently they're meant to break at any sudden movements. It's fake. Fake news! In today's episode of Fake News at the Olympic Games, the beds are meant to be anti-sex. They're made out of cardboard.
I'm sorry, but the accent just, that made this whole video for me. The accent made it for me. So there he is.
Yes,
that's your breakable cardboard bed right there.
Any sudden movements. It's fake. Fake news. In today's episode of Fake News at the Olympic Games, the beds are meant to be anti-sex. They're made out of cardboard, yes, but apparently they're meant to break at any sudden movements. It's fake. Fake
Fake news. Fake. Hey, that's fake, I say. One more time. Let's do this one more time.
news. In today's episode of Fake News at the Olympic Games, the beds are meant to be anti-sex. They're made out of cardboard, yes, but apparently they're meant to break at any sudden movements. It's fake. Fake news. In today's episode of...
Alright, that's enough of that. Let's keep going. From the New York Post. Jeff Bezos jokes about last meal before Blue Origin spaceflight. From Will Fewer. Jeff Bezos, the world's richest man, prepared to blast off into space by joking with reporters Monday evening about his last meal. The Amazon founder, who has a net worth of more than $200 billion, was spotted carrying a tray of arroz con pollo along with his brother Mark, who will join him on Tuesday's spaceflight. The two plopped the dishes of food on the table for reporters gathered at the launch site of his New Shepard space rocket in Van Horn, Texas. Bezos could be seen sporting a belt buckle with an engraving of a rocket cradling through space. The mega billionaire briefly joked with a reporter who asked if it was his last meal. Did somebody say last meal? Bezos responded with a laugh. Let's watch the video.
I have a little roast con pollo for you. My grandmother's recipe. My brother Mark. Hey everybody. Where do you want to eat? Put it on this table over here. Print out the recipe. You want to try this at home. It's our favorite recipe.
You guys done with astronaut training now?
We are. So we're gonna blow refresher early tomorrow morning. Early wake up tomorrow.
Are you?
Now, if you don't like this, just keep it to yourself.
What are you having for breakfast tomorrow?
Yeah, is this your last meal? Are you having steak and eggs?
Hey, did somebody say last meal? I don't think we have to put it that way. Let's talk about it in a different way.
Are you ready? Are you
Guys,
ready?
we just wanted to drop this off. We'll have plenty of time for questions tomorrow. Please remember while you're at this thing also to have some fun. Looks like you guys are. Very excited. Cannot wait. Cannot wait. Bye, guys.
I'm guessing that guy's actually a little bit nervous here, and he's probably projecting off of that one. The historic flight comes on the anniversary of another hallmark moment in human space travel. It's exactly 52 years after Apollo 11 landed on the moon. The Bezos brothers will be joined by Dutch 18-year-old Oliver Damon, who will become the youngest person ever to travel to space once the trip is completed, and trailblazing former NASA trainee Wally Funk, 82. Funk, who will become the oldest person ever to travel to space once the trip is completed, was a member of NASA's Women in Space program in the 1960s. Funk excelled in training, even better than her male counterparts, but the program was shuttered because she had the chance to become an astronaut. Tuesday trip will cap her decades-long dream of reaching the great unknown, she has said in interviews over the past few weeks. Blue Origin, which Bezos founded 21 years ago, tweeted a portrait of the four soon-to-be astronauts on Monday evening, saying they have completed the training and are go for launch. Bezos' billionaire space rival Elon Musk, who founded SpaceX, wished the crew the best of luck. Well, yeah, and I mean, competition is competition. So they're all trying to get out there at the same time, and they're all putting everything on the line to do so. So it looks like they are leaving now, I believe. Yes. Yeah, they're leaving today, as far as I understand. They're leaving this morning, so they're probably going right about now. So I guess we'll know later on today if it was a success or not, or if we still have a Jeff Bezos. But that's where we go on with that. Let's grab probably the least aloha tweet that I've heard from Tulsi Gabbard. And I like Tulsi. I do like Tulsi. But this one, I think, was a stretch too far. Sorry, Tulsi, I like you, but, you know, even our greatest heroes sometimes can fall. Tulsi Gabbard tweets out, Bezos Please stay up there. Do the world a favor. And Jess Mears, Jess for Liberty, tweets out probably one of the best responses to this. I hope this was an account hack. What happened to Aloha? So, yeah, I thought that was kind of lame. I really did. But she said it. Or somebody said it through her account. One of the two. Alright. Couple more here, then we'll head out of here for the day. And remember, if you are lurking right now, get at least one message in so I can write your name in the notebook and say, hey, thank you for watching my program at the end of the week. We do that every Friday, right at the beginning of the show. Oh, I'm almost out of pages on my notebook, actually. I got 2 more left. Wow. Well, we'll have to get a new notebook, too, at some point here. All right, from PJ Media, this was put in the Discord to go and report on here. And I don't usually use PJ Media because they're not green check verified, but I wanted to touch on this for just a second. The vaccine, MIT study, vaccine hesitancy is highly informed, scientifically literate, and sophisticated. From Rick Moran. Vaccine hesitancy is a big problem, according to the Biden admin. Less than half the public is fully vaccinated, while about 56% have received at least one jab. The goal of fully vaccinating the American public appears to have stalled. This should not surprise us. When the vaccines were first approved for emergency use back in December, 40% of Americans expressed skepticism about the vaccine. Trying to shame the holdouts has failed spectacularly. Instead, insulting, degrading them as morons or ignorant has resulted in a vicious pushback and a hardening of positions on getting vaccinated. The administration's plans of sending people door to door to vaccinate them only feeds anti-vaccine skepticism. Trust in authority is at an all-time low, which makes government-sponsored vaccine programs suspect. Still, most experts agree that some people who should be getting vaccinated, aren't doing so. But the root cause isn't ignorance or a belief in conspiracy theories. An MIT study on the problem revealed some surprising results. NRO proponents of the vaccine are unwilling or unable to understand the thinking of vaccine skeptics, or even admit that the skeptics may be thinking at all. Their attempts to enter skepticism or understand it end up poisoned by condescension and end up reinforcing it. The condescension is political in nature and crosses party lines. Sometimes arguments against vaccination are mistaken for irrational thinking. Sometimes the perception of irrationality is almost accidental, because arguments are usually social interactions, not strongly or strictly logical exercises. A vaccine skeptic may brush off a proponent by saying, it's approved for emergency use only. It's not FDA approved. I don't think we should require it. The skeptic is beginning with a fact that's easily established and shareable. But when pressed, they might reveal that their line of thinking is elsewhere. There are no long-term studies. I'm worried about possible long-term effects because the two objections aren't exactly logically connected. The proponent includes it is irrationalism all the way down, but a study done at MIT showed that the substantial portion of public health skepticism was highly informed, scientifically literate, and sophisticated in the use of data. Skeptics use the same data sets as those with orthodox views on public health. The study's lead author, Crystal Lee, says those same exact data sets can be used by either side to marshal arguments. The researchers combed through hundreds of thousands of social media posts and found that coronavirus skeptics often deploy counter-visualizations alongside the same follow-the-data rhetoric as public health experts, yet the skeptics argue for radically different policies. The researchers conclude that the data visualizations aren't sufficient to convey the urgency of the pinko fucking pox, because even the clearest graphs can be interpreted through a variety of belief systems. All right, and that's what they're saying. And I mean, the fact that MIT is even coming out saying that their hesitancy it's based in science. Well, it kind of is. I know there are people out there that think that if you get a single vaccine in your arm, it's got enough mercury in there to give you autism for the rest of your life, or mutate you, or turn you sterile, or something else like that. I don't know if that's true or not, because I'm not a doctor. I'm not a vaccine scientist. I am not a doctor of internal medicine. I don't know any of that. But once the vaccine came out, I was actually in big favor of the vaccine when it came out because it was the free market at work. They got the reins of the government out of the free market and let the free market dictate what was going to come to market and what wasn't. And I'm excited for that. And I said, all right, so this is coming out. I'm going to give it about 6 to 8 months to see if there are any major side effects, because we have no long-term studies for this. I'm going to give it about 6 to 8 months to see if there are any major side effects or anything bad that comes out of this, because a lot of people are jumping up to get this right away. And if there's not, I'll actually consider getting it. And then I saw a lot of major side effects, and I said, you know what? I'm really hesitant about this because I see a lot of major side effects. And then I found out that people are still getting the pinko fucking pox, in spite of the fact that they got vaccinated. And I said, it's not worth it. If I get it, I get it. And that's the end of the story. If I get it, it'll be fine. I don't need to go out and knock myself out for 2 days to get a vaccine that may or may not work. Whatever. It's a whatever thing. All right. Last one that we have here. This one comes from Vox, which, surprise, surprise, we use Vox on this channel every once in a while. Also not green check verified. But I thought this one was worth touching on for just a second. The benefits and harms of marijuana explained by the most thorough research review yet. From German Lopez over at Vox. Marijuana has been with humans in some way or another for thousands of years, but after all this time, there's still a lot of public debate about what exactly pot's risks and benefits are. A recent review of the research from the National Academies of Sciences, Engineering, and Medicine attempts to fill the gap in our knowledge by combing through more than 10,000 studies published since 1999. The review, conducted by more than a dozen experts, provides the clearest look at the scientific evidence on marijuana yet. The research finds both some strong benefits and major downsides to cannabis. It seems to be promising for chronic pain, multiple sclerosis, and cancer patients, but also seems to pose a significant risk for respiratory problems if smoked, schizophrenia and psychosis, car crashes, lagging social achievement in life, and perhaps pregnancy-related problems. Yeah, I mean, no matter what, if you're getting pregnant, you shouldn't be smoking dope. The key findings are just for marijuana. They're for marijuana and cannabinoids, chemical compounds commonly found in pot. It's possible that down the line, some of the benefits in particular will be split from the marijuana leaf itself, although many drug experts believe that there's an entourage effect with marijuana in which all of its cannabinoids and chemicals, which number in the hundreds, work together to make its effects as potent as possible. One major caveat to this, the report is, by its own admission, only a best guess for a lot of its findings because much of the research out there just isn't very good. The report pins the lack of good research largely on government policies, particularly regulatory barriers linked to marijuana's federal classification as a highly restricted Schedule I substance that make it hard to conduct good studies on the drug. The National Academies ultimately calls for these barriers to be cut down and more research to be funded so we can get a better idea of what pot is capable of, especially as more states legalize it both for medical and recreational uses. Still, the report is the best look at marijuana yet. It's nearly 400 pages. If you really want to deep dive into the benefits and harms of marijuana, you should read it in full, but here I provided a summary of what the researchers found. Since the mid-90s, 28 states have legalized marijuana for medical uses, but in all that time, the benefits of pot have remained hazy. Despite some research showing it can be good for pain and muscle stiffness, many of the claims about what pot can do for other ailments, such as epilepsy and irritable bowel syndrome, are based on anecdotal evidence and have yet to be scientifically proven. The report can't validate or invalidate all the claims about marijuana's medical benefits, given that there's no studies on some of these questions, and many of the studies that are out there are bad or lacking, but it does have some solid findings. So, yeah, there's a good list of this. The article here, I believe, is in the Discord. If not, I'm going to throw it in there. But with that, I mean, looking into this, I mean, you've got a drug that's out there that gives you a mental high, essentially, which relaxes you. And when it relaxes you, it relaxes your muscles. I mean, we can understand where some of the muscle and relaxation and sleep deprivation cases can be. But yes, I mean, if you're smoking something, you're always going to have the risk of lung damage if you're taking a foreign substance into your lungs. So there's a lot of different ways that this can go. I remember people saying that, smoking is so bad for you because it destroys your lung, but smoking pot, that's just fine. And I knew that wasn't the case from the beginning. But I was a cigarette smoker, so, I smoked pot too. I understood the risks of inhaling a smoked substance into your lungs because I did it every day. So taking that next step to going to something that's Schedule 1 controlled wasn't really a big deal to me. But yeah, I mean, as with everything else, you make your decision on your own. You decide what's worth it, what isn't, and you go from there. All right. And that's going to be it for the news for the day. And the last thing we're going to do today is Twitter trending. So I've got the Explore page up here. We'll throw a refresh on this quick and see what's going on here. We'll grab the top 5 and we'll go from there. All right, looking in. Number 1 is Blue Origin. Jeff Bezos and crew returned to Earth after a historic suborbital flight. So I guess they did go yesterday. But they are back at this point. Booster Apogee. 347,188 feet. 10 hours, 10 minutes was the mission time. At 2,233 miles per hour. And they are back. So now we can possibly go on to the space program a little bit more. I'm interested to see what kind of research comes from this and what happens when the free market competes with each other again. But they are back. All right. Next one. Scott Foster. Scott Foster tonight apparently is tonight's referee. Biggest game of his life with Scott Foster reffing. CP3 had to be a horrible person in real life. Congratulations to the Bucks, Scott Foster. I don't do a lot of basketball, so I don't know really what's going on with this. I'm not sure, and I haven't watched sports for a year because of all the wokeness here. But apparently, this is a big deal. I know the Bucks are doing really well in basketball, which is a surprise because historically, the Bucks have not done very well in basketball. I don't know if I've ever seen them get an NBA championship in my life, mostly because I don't watch. But I know it's a big deal. I know a lot of people are downtown in Milwaukee and are excited for this. But, if they get it, then congratulations. All right, let's grab the next one here. Eid Mubarak. Muslims around the world celebrate Eid al-Adha, a religious holiday filled with prayers, family gatherings, sweets, and gift-giving. Eid Mubarak, y'all. Eat up, don't make eye contact with any goats, pass out money, sleep in on the first Eid prayer. There's always a second one. Was standing outside my house and a white construction worker passing by smiled and waved, "Salam alaikum, Eid Mubarak." I went back, "Walaikum salam, thank you." I have a lot of Muslim coworkers, he explained. They teach me all the words. Great start of my day. Eid Mubarak to all our friends celebrating the day from the United States. Eid Mubarak to the beautiful homies who celebrate. Hope you have a good day. Well, I don't know what Eid al-Adha is, but if it's celebratory, then, have your day. Absolutely. If it's sorrowful, I'm sorry for the history that gave you the sorrow off of this, but if it's celebratory, then absolutely have your day. Eid Mubarak. All right, we will skip the Tuesday motivation. Aaron Rodgers. Oh, this will be a good one. Aaron Rodgers did something stupid. Oh, it's Shailene Woodley. Shailene Woodley shares why being with Aaron Rodgers is a whole new world.
It's lovely.
You don't want to go for a ride, do you? We could get out of the palace, see the world.
Yeah, no, I'm going to get a copyright ding for that. This offseason, Packers offered Aaron Rodgers a 2-year contract extension that would have tied him to Green Bay for 5 more seasons and made him the highest paid quarterback and player on football. Rodgers declined the offer, proof it's not about the money. So I don't even know if he's going to, once again, with all the wokeness last year, I haven't paid attention to sports ball. I don't know what's going on with this or if he's moving or not. I mean, if they eliminate some of the wokeness, I might go back and sit back and watch the Packers again because, gosh, I love watching the Packers on a Sunday. But, we'll see what happens with this. But apparently the Shailene Woodley thing, that's a big thing too. All right, last one, I think. Do we have one more or last one? Yeah, this will be the last one. This is a K-pop trend, which means I'm also not going to know anything that's going on with it. Dynamite 1 banned Spotify. BTS _TWT Dynamite is one of the 160 songs that has over 1 billion streams on Spotify history. Dynamite gave us these V-cuts. Everyone says thank you. Dynamite has surpassed 1 billion streams on Spotify. Can anybody explain this to me? Anybody at all? I don't know. I don't understand. And I don't know what's going on with it. But apparently, something from a Korean band is hit 1 billion plays. Cool. All right, we're done. We're out of here. Let's throw some music up. Let's change up the scene, and let's go. Well, we'll be back here tomorrow morning for more Contemporary. I hope you guys will come back and join me as well. And like I said, if you're just lurking, get those last minute messages in so I can come and give you the proper thank you for coming and hanging out with us on this program. Otherwise, we will see you here tomorrow morning for more Contemporary. And those of you over on Twitch, stick around for just a second because we are going to go through and raid my friend Steven Ignoramus once again. So come and hang out. That's going to be a good time as well. We will see you tomorrow for more Contemporary. Until then, I am J. Edgar, and this is Contemporary. Take care.